Welcome back to the Sibling Group Chat. I'm Owen.
And I'm Cassidy.
And today we are back at it with the Odyssey review, episode 11, Addictions Can Be Habit Forming.
Yes, this episode aired on January 30th, 1988, and it is a part of the Officer Harley collection. In this episode, a young girl named Joey tries a variety of bizarre methods to get her friend Stephanie to go on a diet. And they claim the themes are self-control and addiction. I have a lot of thoughts on this episode that are probably best shared as we get into it.
Probably. I'm just going to preface this. This being our third Officer Harley episode now, it is the second of those three that has felt like it was probably got rid of because it was just not a good episode.
Yeah. Officer Harley wasn't great, but he was not the biggest problem.
Officer Harley was my favorite part of this episode.
Okay.
Like,
I think he gets... Well, I guess we'll get into it.
There is one part that I thought was maybe a little bit problematic for him, but other than that, I thought he was just funny.
Okay, well, let's see how it goes.
First of all, let's just talk about the intro. The intro story to this one is the corniest one we've had so far.
But I love that it was Phil Lawler, and I can't remember the voice of the other guy. It was either Paul McCusker or Steve Harris, one of the two.
Yeah.
My apologies for not knowing who was who.
But yeah, it's like these two guys who bump into each other on the street, and they can't stop saying I'm sorry, because they both struggle with this habit of saying I'm sorry to literally everything.
Yeah, and then Chris finally interrupts them, to which they both say, sorry.
Yeah, I was like, my word, that is the corniest thing I've heard all day.
Yeah, and it's a bad illustration, I feel like, for bad habits.
Yeah, that's just like over excessive politeness almost, instead of like a bad habit.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, it was...
And I have another question just because it occurred to me after it got into Chris introing and like welcome to Odyssey USA because it was never re-edited. Why do you think they decided not to stick with Odyssey USA? Like, I don't think it's bad. Like,
no.
I mean, I personally think Adventures in Odyssey is better, but I don't think it would have been a problem.
No, I feel like Odyssey USA would like stick with the town and in the town, whereas Adventures in Odyssey is like adventuring anywhere in the world of Odyssey, not just the town of Odyssey.
Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, anyway, I just
yeah, I don't know.
But anyway,
we could probably find the answer somewhere. Also, I was wondering or thinking, this episode aired on January 30th. So at the beginning of January, we had a New Year's resolutions episode. Now here at the end of January, we have an habits episode. I feel like this isn't a coincidence. I feel like they were really trying to stress to these 8 to 12-year-olds how careful we need to be with resolutions and habits.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know what to say to that. I didn't think about that. You overthink the timing of these way more than I do.
Sorry, you don't even always look at it.
I never look at it. But anyway,
moving on.
Yeah, moving on. We enter the episode, and Chris is like, "We have at this point noticed that Wits End is a very special place." Okay.
This is just odd. As much as I appreciated the acknowledgement of Wits End, I was like, this doesn't feel necessary to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a little weird.
I thought so too. But this is, I do appreciate this, the first time that we find out that Wits End's train set is the biggest in the state.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I feel like it's the biggest in the county.
Yeah, but I can't imagine there's that many train sets in the county.
In the county, no.
But yeah, I did appreciate that. Anyway,
also, this is the first time we acknowledge that there's a library in Wits End.
Yeah, did she say thousands or hundreds of books?
I don't remember.
It was a lot, more than I expect in the library at Wits End. But anyway,
yeah.
Chris is actually there at Wits End. She's next to the train set. It almost makes it sound like she shrunk down to be standing on the train set because she said she needs to get away from the tracks.
Yeah.
like a little electric
Yeah, I'm not
train
sure
set.
quite what's going on there.
Me neither. But anyway, she tells that Joey Donovan is playing with the train set. And then we go into...
We need to clarify Joey is a girl.
Yes, Joey is a girl. Then we hop into the story as Whit is telling Joey to hook up old number 7, which is apparently the first train that the set ever had, to hook up that train to this, I guess, hook up the engine to a train that they'd already put together and let it run. And Joey doesn't want to because it's a very old train. She thinks it's too broken down. But Whit says to do it, so they hook it up and let it go. And then as it starts going, what is this background music?
I don't know.
Did you notice?
I had a note about some, not that specific spot. I did have a note about the transition music to the next scene later. After this.
Don't get ahead of me. I have that noted later.
Okay. I guess I didn't notice the music during the train.
It was odd. But anyway,
I believe it.
Then Mr. Whitaker was also talking very oddly this whole, like, he seemed rather bubbly and overly energetic. Not Mr. Whitaker.
No, he's like, just try the train. It'll be fine. I'm sure it's gonna work. Like, Mr. Whitaker, you're setting us up for the object lesson later in the show, and that's the only reason you're this bubbly.
Yeah, it wasn't his, like, usual demeanor, I felt like.
No, it was a bit off.
Yeah. So anyway, the new train, or old number 7 seems to be running fine for a while, and then all of a sudden it goes into a tunnel, and then a newer train that was running behind it runs into it, and it's this whole mess. And I want to know, first of all, why is there 2 trains running that close together on the track? Like, that's just setting yourself up for failure.
I don't know enough about electric trains to know that that's a problem or not.
Yeah, actually me either, but... Anyway, there's this big crash, and then Joey's like, I told you old number 7 was too old, it should be just thrown away. And then, keeping up with the theme of Whit not being himself today, Whit goes, well, I'm old and worn down, should we just throw me away?
Yeah, that line, I was like, what?
Yeah, like, I'm so confused with Mr. Whitaker at this point.
It's funny, but out of character for Mr. Whitaker.
I feel like Mr. Whitaker, like, had some coffee this morning or something, like... Mr. Whitaker had
more of like a Bernard Walton kind of a line.
Yeah. Except it wasn't said sarcastically.
No, he was like dead serious.
Yeah.
What if she had said yes?
Speaking of Bernard Walton, when does he come to Odyssey?
Not for a while.
Yeah.
He doesn't come until the episode where Kurt runs for student council.
Oh, okay, yeah. I need
There's a con man running a con job here and a con job there. Here a con, there a con, everywhere a con.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, everyone needs some Bernard Walton in their life, but he's not here yet. So back to the actual story. We are just all over the place today. Maybe we had what Mr. Whitaker had.
Yeah, I don't know.
So anyway, Connie comes and asks about the mess, and then there's just an abrupt transition. Like I don't know, I just felt like there wasn't any, like, flow into the transition.
No. Did they have a reason for leaving the train room, or did it literally just cut scenes?
I think it just cut scene.
Yeah, it was some weird transition music.
It's the weirdest transition music I've ever heard. Like, they didn't have their usual music guy working on this episode or something.
But they did, because they had their regular transition music later in the episode.
Did they?
Yeah, there was at least a few regular, like, sounds you hear other times in the show. But this one right here, I was like, what is this?
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, our transition takes us to the front counter, where Connie tells Joey that Whit will fix the trains, and then she tells her that or gives her something that she ordered, like a Coke or something.
Something.
Yeah, and then there's a bell that dings, and we find out that Stephanie, this is the first time we meet Stephanie, by the way, who's kind of a main character here. Stephanie's pizza is ready. The pizza oven rides again!
The only redeeming part about this episode is that it brings back the pizza oven, which we thought until much later was lost to Odyssey forever.
Yes, I was. This made me happy.
It did.
Yeah. They're just like the
I
pizza
don't necessarily
oven.
like the role it played in the episode, but I'm glad it was there.
Yeah, me too. Like, Davy, his invention lives on.
Yeah. And it's funny too because Connie says something about, yeah, this pizza oven was made by some kid named Davy. Like, I
I
don't
don't
think
think he
that
said.
much time has passed since episode 1. Do they not know Davy?
Well, yeah, I don't know how much time has passed. I don't think they said his name. I think she said some kid.
Oh.
But
Oh, okay.
yeah, I mean, Connie might not know Davy if he's not around
No.
as much anymore. But yeah, you would think maybe the kids would have. But
Yeah.
anyway, then not too long after, Stephanie wants another pizza.
Well, we find out that this was her third pizza, I believe.
We find that out after she asks for another one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she asks for another one, and then Connie's like, "Are you sure?" And then she says, "Yeah, she wants to take one home or something." And then Bobby, different
But
Bobby, or at least different voice.
wait, pause. She doesn't say she wants to take the pizza home until she gets questioned on it. So I don't think that was her original plan. Just when people started questioning her, like, you were gonna eat another pizza, she's like, oh, I'm just gonna take it home. But I don't think that was her original intention.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It didn't seem like it was her original intention, but regardless, that is what she says. And then
Mm-hmm.
Bobby, like I just said, a different Bobby, or at least different voice for Bobby.
Did you tell who the voice was?
It was Max. Is that his name?
No, it was Connie.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, it was Katie Lee voicing this boy Bobby.
Yeah. I didn't think about that. What episode is it that she does that? She like calls into kids' radio using that voice.
I don't remember.
It happens.
It does. But I was like, okay, so Bobby has been in several episodes now. We've established Bobby has been being voiced by Dave Griffin, who we know comes back as Jimmy. So where was he this week that they were like, Katie, you're gonna have to voice Bobby for us this week.
Yeah, and that was I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. But then
Yeah.
Bobby's having a bad day because Bobby is making fun of
He's
Stephanie for eating too much, and he literally calls her fat. Like that is not
yeah,
something I would have ever expected to hear on an Adventures in Odyssey episode, regardless of the topic.
exactly. And it just goes downhill from here.
It really does, because Stephanie just then takes the pizza and leaves, and then Connie
Yeah,
tells Joey. Sorry, what?
I was saying you can just tell that Stephanie feels bad, but she's also used to it.
Yeah, but then after she leaves, Connie tells Joey that Stephanie needs help.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a hate on Stephanie day or something. Like
Yeah, like everyone, not everyone is rude to Stephanie, but everyone acknowledges that she needs help with her overeating problem.
yeah,
And we don't see Stephanie, so I don't know how legitimate her issue was, but everyone else seems to think she has a legitimate problem.
it does seem that way, and it just I don't know. Yeah,
It was very alarming. I did not expect this from Adventures in Odyssey.
me either. Me either.
But it only gets worse, so let's keep going.
Yeah. So next we find that after I believe some maybe more weird transition music, I don't remember.
Probably.
Next we find Joey trying to get a book, but she can't reach it, and then Officer Harley shows up. Which didn't seem odd at the time, because you never know where Officer Harley might be. But then we find out they're at Wit's End, and he's on duty. Why is he in Wit's End on duty?
See, this is where I can see parents having a problem with him as a police officer, because he never seems to be doing his job as he's supposed to be.
That is true. I didn't think about that. But anyway, Officer Harley helps her reach the book, and it's actually a nutrition book, a diet and nutrition book. And Joey wants it for a friend, Stephanie.
Who
But
we know is Stephanie.
yeah, and Officer Harley's like, "Oh, that's a good book," and he particularly likes the part about the digestive system. Like, I don't know. I'm just enjoying the Officer Harley like goofiness here. I can
Yeah.
understand why you wouldn't want the goofy police officer, but in an episode that I found to be so terrible, it was nice.
It was the breath of fresh air, his goofiness was, not his problematic advice we'll get to in a moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of thought that was funny too, and I think part of it for me is that I've recently listened to a couple episodes with Private Eye Harlow Doyle, and so like in my mind, I'm just thinking of his goofiness, and it's just funny. It's not. So I don't know. If to me, it's more just like for some nice humor. But anyway,
Yeah.
she asks Officer Harley if he's looking for a book, and he says no, he can't read on the job unless he's booking somebody. Nice little corny pun for you.
Yeah.
But then she talks, or he asks if she's looking to diet or something, or about the diet for the friend or whatever. But anyway, Officer is in like, well, you came to the right place, and she's like, Wits End, and he's like, no, to me. Haven't you ever heard of the Harley diet? Which, of course, no one has ever heard of, like, ever in their life.
No.
Actually, what I think happens is she says, the Harley diet, and he's like, oh, you've heard of it. She's like, no, I haven't. But anyway, she explains the Harley diet, which it turns out was actually a diet that he made up for a friend of his at the academy so that he could gain enough weight to meet the minimum requirement to be the police officer. And so she's like,
feeling a little like Barney Fife here.
Yeah.
But Mr. Whitaker is a big fan of Andy Griffith.
Yeah. But then so Joey's like, well, that's all great, but I'm trying to help a friend lose weight. He's like, well, don't worry, the Harley diet has a plan for that too. You cover everything in green food coloring. And at first I'm like, what? How's that going to help? And then the way he explains it, I can see why it makes sense to him.
Yeah.
You either, when you look at it, you won't be able to eat it, or your stomach will think it's a vegetable.
And to think he just said he's read this diet and nutrition book. You'd think he would know that your stomach just doesn't think something is a vegetable and then digest it as a vegetable.
Yeah. Anyway. So then Joey's like, I don't
Joey doesn't think this one's going to work.
No. And she doesn't think that Stephanie would want to be on a diet. And Officer Harley tells her, like, well, then you could just help her get started. I recommend the NFL diet. And she's like, the football league? And he's like, yeah, every time she gets near food, tackle her. But not if it's lettuce or bran, I think he says. And she's like, yeah, because it's good for her? He's like, well, yeah, that. But if you tackle her near lettuce, there's a penalty for unnecessary roughage.
That one was funny.
I almost laughed out loud.
Gonna start using that one?
Yeah. Let's not have any 15-yard penalties for unnecessary roughage here.
Yeah.
And then I have written down, there's more weird transition music, and we find Joey coming to sit with Stephanie, I think at school lunch. But after the last episode, maybe it was Mr. Whitaker's lunch at Wits End.
Who knows? We should acknowledge, too, though, that Joey did think the just keep her from eating advice was good.
Yeah, that was a little bit problematic. I was concerned about that. Yeah, but anyway, Stephanie seems upset or annoyed at lunch, so I don't know if she's recently been being made fun of again. But, like, she seemed annoyed before Joey said anything.
Yeah.
But then Joey asks her if she's ever tried a diet, which, good luck asking that question. And then she says that she had, but she usually gives up. But then Joey convinces her that if she helps her, they could give it a try, and Stephanie decides to agree to it. But Joey helping her consists of Joey confiscating her entire lunch and giving her an apple.
Yeah.
Just an apple.
Not good.
Just an apple. Yep. And so the next, we end up at Wits End, and then Stephanie is up at the counter asking Connie to make her pizza as fast as humanly possible because Joey is in the bathroom. She really needs
begging
food.
for a pizza.
Yeah, like, but
and this seems to be a good, like, a day or like a few days or a week or so later because she's been doing this for a while.
Like maybe one day.
Well, It had to have been, I'd say, at the least 2 days, because Connie asks her if she's lost any weight yet, and she said, no, I actually gained 1 pound. So it could be just one day, but I would think it was a little bit more than that.
Yeah, it could have been. But anyway, basically, from what Stephanie's saying, Joey is practically starving her forcibly. But then, just as the pizza finishes, Joey comes out of the bathroom and starts yelling about that she's trying to get a pizza. Officer Harley comes in, which she's apparently just patrols Wits End 24/7.
Well, this is his afternoon patrol. He says that.
Yes, he does. And Officer Harley comes in, and Joey says that Stephanie is trying to steal the pizza. And Officer Harley starts to make an arrest or something, and then Mr. Whitaker comes in what's going on here? He said it's a code 4 whatever 414 I think it was. And Mr. Whitaker's like, what's that? It's it's a grand theft mozzarella. Which apparently there's a code for that in Officer Harley's book, but But then Whit comes in, calms down the situation, and then tells Officer Harley to put down the gun. Which, when he first said that, I was like, he has a gun pulled in Wit's End? And then he's like, well, this isn't a gun, it's a cucumber. To which I was like, how in the world could Mr. Whitaker not tell that he wasn't holding a gun but a cucumber?
I don't know. It could have just been the angle Mr. Whitaker was standing.
Was it the world's oddest shaped cucumber? Was this a gun-shaped cucumber? Or...
I mean... Officer Harley sure could have a gun-shaped cucumber.
It wouldn't surprise me if he had that. Especially, he wouldn't surprise me if he even had it in his holster.
No.
But, yeah, I was like, wait, he has a gun? And then I was like, he can't see that that's not a gun?
Yeah, I don't know which was more of a shock.
Yeah, anyway, all of that aside, Stephanie basically says that she's starving. And Joey says that if she wants to stay, or basically, they argue a little bit, and then Joey basically says, well, fine, if you want to stay fat, be your own self.
Mm-hmm.
That was really poorly worded. But
it's a sad argument.
Yeah. Stephanie leaves, which
but the whole time they were arguing, Mr. Whitaker was trying to butt in, but the Mr. Whitaker I know would have butted in and ended that argument before Stephanie had a chance to leave. I don't know what Mr. Whitaker's deal was here.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I was thinking the same thing. And then Stephanie leaves, which I would have too.
Yeah.
And then Joey basically tells Mr. Whitaker that what's been going on, and then she goes with somewhere. Oh, they go to the workshop to talk because that's where the train is. The old number 7 from earlier.
Yeah.
But and then Joey tells Whit. Do you have something?
I think you're about to say what I was going to say.
Joey tells Whit that she thinks that Stephanie is addicted to food.
Yeah, and then Whit says, like a drug addiction equivalent.
But then, this is the weird part. Whit says, you're probably right.
Yeah.
We don't talk about overeating as an addiction generally.
No, it can be, but I don't think we should be endorsing children diagnosing their friends.
Exactly. And then there's I don't know, it's just an odd topic for an episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts I'll get to at the very end, but for right now, this is not the way we should go about it, and Mr. Whitaker should not be agreeing with her.
No. But then Whit says that part of the problem is that she figured out what the problem was, but didn't figure out why it was a problem. Which is, I can kind of understand what he's getting at here. And then, but I still think it's odd that they're trying super hard to figure out how to stop a food addiction and calling it an addiction. But anyway, it's, the fact that it's compared to your average addiction is just odd.
Yeah. It's like they wanted to make an episode about addiction, but they didn't want to talk about drugs, so they chose to use food instead.
Yeah.
I don't think that was the right choice.
Another thing. Later in Odyssey, they decided to make an episode about addiction. It's a kids' radio episode in the Twilight Zone with a chicken.
Oh, yeah.
And that is actually...
Rubber chickens are much better than food.
it's a much better episode that deals with that.
It's a really odd episode, but the analogy is good.
But yeah, it's more like it's kind of like with the dentist episode. It's not something that will happen in real life. No one's gonna go get a toy chicken and become addicted to the toy chicken. But the principle is there, so it still teaches the lesson. So it's like when they changed the dentist episode to a different episode about fear, so that it wouldn't cause fear about the dentist, but it still dealt with the problem of fear.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think they did that. I don't think they probably did that because we need a new episode about addiction, because that's like years later. But
no, and they're not similar plots.
No, but the fact that they did it again and they did it better and more tastefully, I feel like, and it helps. Anything in the Twilight Zone isn't real life on kids' radio, so that just,
it's a good place to deal with hard topics.
So anyway, that just came to me as we were reading this. But anyway, so now Whit compares the problem, Stephanie's problem, to old number 7, the train that broke earlier. And he tells her how he found out what the problem was, and then he figured out how to solve it. So Whit tells that Joey can't just... But then Joey's like talking about like accepting Stephanie for who she is, and Whit's like, no, you can't do that. We're not accepting her. You need to tell her that... he's having wrong. And he's
what she's doing is wrong.
Yeah, what she's doing is wrong. I'm like, eating is not wrong. There is a point where it becomes unhealthy.
Yeah.
But I feel like the way you said that was like, yes, what she's doing is wrong. How dare she?
Like it's a sin.
Yeah. And then Whit tells her to talk to Stephanie and let her know that she isn't eating healthily or whatever, but that Joey doesn't know all the answers. And then he encourages Joey to pray for Stephanie. Again, if a friend has a problem, praying for her, it does seem like something that you should do and that Mr. Whittaker would encourage kids to do. But this whole situation is just still odd to me.
The advice, the not food specific advice is good. Just this scenario is problematic because he even tells her pray for her and try to get her know her better to find the root of the problem. That's good advice, just not for this situation.
Yeah. So then now we're at the trains again. We transition to the trains. Joey opens up number
sometime
7
in the future.
Yeah. And then right after she turns number 7 loose on the train tracks, Stephanie comes over to talk to Joey. So Bobby takes the trains. And then Joey goes to talk to Stephanie. And it's clear from the conversation they have that Joey did talk to Stephanie, that they had a good conversation and that it all went well. Theoretically. Like, good as in, like, it... You know what I mean.
Results.
Yeah, there was good results. And then Stephanie tells Joey that her family is going to counseling together. So it makes it seem like there was some family issue that was somewhat
triggering her eating habits.
Yeah. And that she's lost 7 pounds, which is good, but I still feel like the whole thing that we're talking about with a weight problem is just still odd. It's a weird thing to talk about. Yeah, and so then the episode ends pretty much right there.
Oh, no, not quite yet. Because when she says she's lost 7 pounds, then Bobby immediately says, "Go number 7!" cheering on the engine. But Stephanie thinks he's congratulating her, and then Joey corrects her. But, so the whole reason we had an engine number 7 this entire time was to make a further comment about her weight loss? Not okay.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. The number 7 was irrelevant, except to make a comment about her weight.
Yeah, that's yeah.
So now the episode has ended. You can wrap it up before I rant again.
Yeah, let me just say, Chris says that Stephanie is lucky to have a friend like Joey. Sure. Yeah. And then Chris talks about good friends, like the friends who lowered their friend through a roof to see Jesus.
This is a terrible analogy. I mean, not terrible. Like, it wasn't the worst part of the episode, but
it's good friends.
It is. But yeah, I don't know. She says that Joey learned 2 important lessons: to think about the reason for a problem and to know that only God can really make the change happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then she uses the analogy of the paralytics taking their friend to Jesus just as we should take our friends to Jesus.
The friends took a paralytic to Jesus. The paralytic didn't take the friends to Jesus.
Did I say that?
I don't know. You said it said it out of order to me anyway.
Yeah, I sure could have said that. I'm just so worked up about this episode. I don't know what
Well,
I'm saying anymore.
yeah. So anyway, let me just wrap up my thoughts. The only thing that I did like about the episode was one, and I don't like this as much because you just told me about what the train's number meant. But I did like that the
Mm-hmm.
episode started and ended at the train set. It was just a nice tying it all
Full
together.
circle.
Yes, full circle
Yeah.
moment. And then I just
The
like,
train came around the track.
yeah, Officer Harley was just enjoyable for me this episode. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
understand a couple of things would have been problematic for the reasons we're told they got rid of Officer Harley, but
Mm-hmm.
I still feel like this episode was gotten rid of for non-Officer Harley related reasons.
Yep.
So yeah, that's 2 for 1. Just so we're keeping track. 2 episodes we've said are gotten rid of because of the episode, and
Mm-hmm.
one because of Officer Harley. So
Yeah.
keep track of
You
that
ready to
as
hear
we
my
go
thoughts?
further on. I am fully ready. I am all ears.
Okay. My notes are over a page long, so I'll try to keep them short because this is already our longest episode.
Yeah, no kidding.
so, so there are some legitimate problems with Officer Harley in this episode. He gives terrible weight loss advice that the child takes, and then he also advances at a child with a cucumber, not a gun, but it's still an iffy situation, I feel like. So, those were my Officer Harley problems with the episode. But that being said, Officer Harley was not the biggest problem. And like I said earlier, it doesn't seem like weight loss was the intended theme of the episode. They claim that the episode is about addiction, but for as targeted as the episode was, weight loss might as well have been the theme for as much as they talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
And and I do realize too, this was made in the late 80s, and so I know diet culture has come a long way since then. Not because I was there, but just because what I know. So maybe this wasn't seen as problematic when it was aired, but it is problematic. So that maybe it wasn't then, but it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of whether they thought it was wrong at the time, I'm pretty sure we shouldn't be encouraging kids to help their friends with weight and eating problems.
Or
Like,
just any addictions.
no. Like, if a kid recognizes that their friend is having these, you can talk to them about it, talk them through it a little bit, but you shouldn't encourage your friend to be the sole help in that instance.
Yeah.
And so you have to discuss weight specifically with children and teens like very carefully. That's like it's a very touchy subject because you don't want to like crush them in their self-esteem or their body image. You don't want to create worse problems, but if she legitimately has an unhealthy weight, then it does need to be addressed.
Yeah.
But not by her friends. Um, so while gluttony is a sin, being overweight does not automatically equal gluttony. And I almost felt like at one point Mr. Whitaker made it sound like he was saying her overeating was a sin problem.
Yeah.
Maybe I took that too far, but it got pretty close, if not all the way there.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not right, I don't think.
Yeah.
Um,
Honestly, I feel like just the worst part of this episode for me was just how Mr. Whitaker didn't seem to be himself at all the whole time. Like just from
no.
his bubbliness at the beginning to the kind of off advice he was giving, and it just didn't seem quite right.
No, and like I said, maybe for the time the advice wasn't off, but it sure hasn't aged well. But yeah, Mr. Whitaker, Connie's not really an adult, but in this instance she counts as one. Connie and Mr. Whitaker and Officer Harley, as the three adults in this episode, they all affirm that Stephanie has a problem and that Joey is right to help her. And none of them give good advice, which I think is a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, like his biggest not his biggest advice, but a big part of what Mr. Whitaker told Joey was to pray for Stephanie. And while prayer is always good, in the case of weight and eating, there's legitimate, like, you could have medical issues, they could be stress induced. Like for Stephanie, it was an issue at home. Like, prayer is good, but there are legitimate action steps that can be taken when it comes to this issue. So, also, like, maybe she just was never taught healthy eating. Like, that's another problem it could have been. So, I think the best course of action for Mr. Whitaker or Connie to take, if they take any at all, would have been to talk to Stephanie directly, not just keep talking to Joey. Perhaps alone, maybe get her parents involved to, like, address the problem. Like, the advice to talk to her and try to find the root problem was good, but Joey shouldn't have been the one to do it. It should have been an adult who did it.
For sure.
So, I'll admit that finding a root of a problem and addressing it was good advice, but Joey shouldn't have been the one to do it. And if you want to make an episode about addiction, that's fine, but just choose a different addiction. Like, this was not the way to do it.
Yeah, so overall, I just felt like it was just a poor episode, top to bottom, left to right, like,
yeah, and so
across the board.
Maybe that's why they removed it. But since it's now available to be listened to, I feel like there should be some sort of statement for Focus on the Family, or something like published on the club or something, like acknowledging that this isn't good advice.
Kind of how on Disney, if they have something that they perceive as not politically correct, they're like, the things portrayed in this they were wrong then and they're wrong now.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about that when I said that. I feel like if they removed this because it was problematic, since you can now still hear it, I think they need to acknowledge that it's problematic. But that's just me.
I'd agree. But yeah. I think that about sums it up.
Yeah. Next episode will be a breath of fresh air. Our next episode is The Tangled Web, another classic from The Adventure Begins. Hallelujah, praise the Lord.
Yes. And you might not know. Do you know how much of The Adventure Begins we have left?
Not off the top of my head, but it can't be that much. We have this one, I know.
I think I have it. I do have it.
It's a surprise tool that can help us later.
Yeah. So we've listened to Wits Flop, Life of the Party, Connie Comes to Town, Gifts for Magic Guy, The Day After Christmas, Promises, Nothing to Fear, The Tangled Web. So,
that's next week, but yeah.
Well, yeah, that's next week. So we have The Tangled Web, A Change of Heart, Recollections, and then A Member of the Family.
So what, 4?
4 episodes. A Member of the Family is a 2-part episode.
Which we'll probably review as one. I don't know. We haven't discussed that, I don't think, yet.
Maybe. I don't know. But, so yeah, we're getting there. And I do believe we're planning to, as kind of a fun end to every album, we're going to have kind of a ranking, tier list, grading thing. We haven't exactly figured out what, but somehow we're going to, like, give our thoughts on each episode, like, stacked against each other, kind of.
Yeah, so be on the lookout for that. Are we going to do that for the last episodes in Officer Harley, or are they just automatically on the bottom?
You know,
guess we'll have to find out.
We'll get there. Yeah, tune back in after we figure it out, so that you can figure it out. But yeah, I think that'll about do it for today. So I thank you for listening and or watching. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Sibling Group Chat. Subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Hit the like button.
Or on Spotify.
Yeah. Follow, listen, share it with your friends. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. Bye.